Good to go? Thank you. I saw that. Okay, welcome guys. Thanks for being here. Sorry I was running late. It was for a good cause. So, how are you? Excellent. So, today's topic is titled, not that, how to keep your frequency high. Yay! How do you do it? It's one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. One of them. And as with many of these sort of like how-to questions, some have a very formulaic response and some are more dynamic, more based off of you as an individual, intuitive. You have to feel your way into it. You have to put it to practice. You have to figure out what works for you, what does not work for you. I can give some general guidelines, but make it exciting for you. Apply it in a way that works for you. First of all, number one, how to keep your frequency high, is to stay as connected as you can to your true self, to your true devotion, to your true connection, what is most important to you. For some that may be symbolized by the one, infinity. For some that may be symbolized by consciousness. For some that may be represented by what feels true for me in this moment, my resonance. For some people it may be what seems true for them, like almost on a bodily level, like what feels true. For some people it's an idea or it's a frequency. For example, love. I want to stay true to love. So have something that you would call the highest. Whatever for you is represented by the highest. The highest. I found this to be one of the most effective ways to always keep a straight back throughout intense, super subtle, dynamic circumstances, is to never sacrifice upon that which is most important to you, which is your connection to the divine, however you want to call that divine or that divinity. The divinity within, which is also the divinity without, because there's no separation. So to have that true connection to what is the truest to you. So it can be a thought, it can be an image, it can be a word, but use your imagination to tune into that which is most important to you and let that run your life, in a sense, especially when shit hits the fan. To maintain a high state of frequency, empowerment, in other words, or clarity as to who you are, what you belong to. Sometimes I say you belong to infinity, not to the human mind. Do not get needy and greedy whenever you can. Do not get too needy and greedy. Do not become a beggar, because you are a creator. You are part of infinity. You belong to infinite abundance, to infinite endlessness, to infinite endless eternal consciousness. So to remember something along those lines, something truly transcendent to all the things that you see going on an everyday basis. Does everyone have something along those lines that represents this connection to them? Raise your hand if you do. Good, okay. I think that's everyone. That's good. So was there anyone that did not raise their hand? Or that does not have that connection? Or does not know what I'm talking about? When I say your true devotion, your highest aspiration, your highest connection? Okay, good. So when all else fails, this will save your butt. When you've tried every other technique, when you've tried every other method, when you've tried to raise your frequency and have amazing thoughts about yourself and about the universe, and these can definitely work. They can shoot you right through the roof. But when all else fails, resort back to you and you. Let go of everyone else. Let go of all the circumstances. Go back to your source. Okay? Baseline, most important. Well, most relevant when nothing else seems to work. The next, I wouldn't say stage down, but let's say when shit hits the fan, but you are still able to manage your frequency. So it's not completely desperate yet. Maybe a little desperate, but it's not absolutely despondent. It's not yet Arjuna style. Then take your consciousness, take your mind, take your thoughts, if you will, take your imagination to a focus that represents true connection to you. It sounds kind of similar, and in a way it is, but this can be more context related. This can be more in honor of your dreams, shall I say. So things that you desire, a state of being that you desire, a version of yourself as an individuated expression of the all that is consciousness that you wish to express yourself most as. Those type of core frequencies that mean the most to you, that are slightly more contextual and personal and relative in nature. Take your consciousness to these ideas and avoid thinking too much, if at all, about anything that gives you a sense of struggle and resistance. What happens, some call this spiritual bypassing. What happens when you do this is you ease into who you are. Why do you feel good when you take your consciousness to certain types of points of view? So a point of view can apply to any kind of circumstance. Any circumstance has infinite points of view at its disposal, and which one you pick is up to you. Everything is inherently neutral and meaningless. Words don't mean anything, circumstances don't mean anything, whatever people say to you doesn't mean anything, whatever people do to you doesn't mean anything. Nothing means anything. Does that sound fun? Maybe not, maybe so. It's the truth. Deal with it. If you know that everything is neutral and meaningless, and that everything is completely subjective and you generate your own state of being only, no one else is responsible for your state of being, no one else is responsible for the way you see life, no one is responsible for the way that you feel. You and you alone. May sound intense and heavy, but it's really just a very liberating truth when you embrace this, when you own this. Okay, because if you don't own it, you can't change it. So if you don't want to change it, that's fine. You can play victim to yourself. But if you wish to change it, transform it, ascend, progress, you need to own it. Whatever you don't believe is yours, you can't affect. If you say, well, it's up to them that I feel this way, well, then it is up to them that you feel that way. So you can't suddenly change how you feel unless they change how they respond to you. Does that make sense? Just a very basic example, but happens all the time in everyday life. We automatically project meaning into things, and we forget that this is smoke and mirrors. A game, a dynamic play of energy inside of consciousness that reflects how we play internally with our own beliefs, our own perspectives, our own observations, our own definitions, our own interpretations, our own responses, our own desires, our own beliefs, etc. So everything is neutral and meaningless, except for you. Well, in a sense, you are too. But you have the power to give meaning. And this may sound a little silly or stupid even. If there's no meaning inherent in things, then why would you start giving meaning to things? People sometimes ask me that question. It's a bit of a subtle point. So, especially in the more old school, traditional spiritual circles of Buddhism, Hinduism, Advaita, it's often idolized to not define things. And it's a very helpful practice. So if you see that everything is neutral and meaningless, why not just keep quiet? Right? Keep quiet, be still, and know that there is no meaning. Know that there is only God, something along those lines. That's beautiful to know that there's only God, definitely. And because everything is neutral and meaningless, there's always going to be a subjective game that's running, that's at play. Even the subjective definition of there is no definition is a definition. It colors your experience. Even when you say, oh, this is neutral and meaningless, you either feel good about it, you feel bad about it, depending on how you color the very neutral statement that everything is neutral and meaningless. It's a very neutral statement. It's very empty, meaningless, and neutral to say that everything is empty, meaningless, and neutral. So how that makes you feel, again, depends on your definition of it. And on and on and on it goes. So you can never escape the fact that you shape your own experience. Does that make sense? I know it's hard to understand sometimes. It's hard to see immediately that you are the creator of your feeling state. I know it's hard sometimes. However, it's the truth. So deal with it. Or don't. But then you must be enjoying what you're doing at present. So, when you, and I've shared this many times, but I'll share it again because it's such a crucial understanding. Since everything is neutral and meaningless, and it's up to you to define what something means, it is therefore up to you how you feel about something. Now, what makes for a good feeling, an amazing feeling, an expansive feeling, and what makes for a bad, negative, or contractive feeling? Anyone, just in one sentence? What?
Belief systems.
Belief systems, but yes, definitely, but what exactly makes it that a belief feels either great or bad? Anyone in one sentence?
In alignment with your higher self.
Thank you. So we feel amazing as soon as our subjective interpretation of what is always going to be neutral and meaningless is in alignment with the way consciousness sees things. And by consciousness, this can be called higher self. You can even go as far as to say source or the one. Doesn't really matter. Or creation or the fundamental principles of existence. But when your subjective interpretation of what is essentially neutral and meaningless is in vibrational alignment with the deeper essence of your consciousness, of creation therefore, of existence, because there's no difference between your consciousness and creation and existence and God and source. When your perspective is in a vibrational understanding that aligns itself with the vibrational understanding of your way more expanded, seeing many parallel realities at the same time type of self or level of consciousness. When those two line up, or let's just say when your personal vibration lines up with your higher self's vibration or source's vibration or God's vibration, if you will, you feel great. That's literally all that it means. Not that that's insignificant, I'm just saying that's all that there is to it. There is no other reason for you to ever feel good. You can't feel good about a single thing unless your perspective of that single thing is in alignment with the way higher consciousness would view that thing. Simple, right? Does everyone get that?
Yep.
Okay, cool, thank you. Why do you feel bad? You feel bad precisely because of the opposite reason. What you're believing about a circumstance is being signaled to you to be out of alignment with the truth of creation. That's why you feel bad. Feeling bad is a good signal. It means your compass is working. So again, like I said last week, next time you feel bad, you go, oh, jolly. This is great, thank you. I feel bad. That means something positive is occurring. What does it mean? My guidance compass is intact. It's working. And my higher self is loving me because it's actually, as expanded as it is, it cares enough about my existence to actually come down and knock on my door in the form of a bad feeling and let me know that my perspective is out of alignment with its more expanded perspective. It's patiently waiting for you to grow up, to gain perspective. That's what bad feelings are. What do? Bad feeling. Oh my God, this means something negative. Defining a neutral feeling, such as a bad feeling, which is a neutral thing, as a bad thing makes us feel even worse because it puts us even further out of alignment with how higher self sees it. And so higher self comes down again, knocks on our door triple times, and says, hey, you're defining the neutral emotion that already made you feel negative because your perspective of the initial thing was out of alignment, but now you're defining this as also being bad, as also being wrong, as also meaning lack, as also meaning lack of progress, lack of abundance, lack of connection. While it is in fact the opposite, it's a sign of abundance, it's a sign that your compass is working, it's a sign that I love you, it's not a sign that you're not loved, it's a sign that you are loved. A bad feeling means you're loved. What do? You define it as a negative thing. and on and on and on it goes. And so you create this downward negative spiral, which leads to pessimism, cynicism, depression, etc. Make sense? Good. Alternatively, you can start to pay attention. So you pay attention to how you feel. Sounds silly, especially again from the angle, not to hammer too much on that, but I know certain people do come from that background, some of my viewers online as well. So I'll just address it real quick again. From the more classical, old school circles of spirituality, which are based in systems and beings that have realized things thousands of years ago, which are no longer relevant today. Well, some of it is, but some of it isn't. That type of spirituality will let you believe that, wait, where was I going with this? Yes, will have you believe that feelings don't really mean anything. And, well, they're true. They're saying the same thing I said. Feelings don't mean anything. However, they do mean that they're signaling you. So they don't inherently mean anything, but what they do mean is that you're in communication with your true self. So when you pay attention to how you feel, you're quite literally answering the phone. If you don't care about how you feel, you quite literally just hear it ringing. And then at some point, it keeps ringing. It's not like a regular phone because higher self actually loves you unconditionally. So it waits patiently from its timeless point of view. So if you don't pick up the phone, it will keep ringing. So what do people do? Then they start avoiding, then they start bypassing in that sense. Then they start running away from the call. The call is feeling bad. Now, nobody wants to feel bad. That's why the system works so well. Because it lets you know that this is not right, right? So now we have to gain the maturity, we have to gain the wisdom, we have to gain the appreciation, the alignment, the minimal degree of alignment to redefine feeling bad in a good way. If you can do this, you can keep your frequency high most any other time. So this would be a third suggestion. The first being, find your connection to whatever is the highest, divinity, the one, the absolute, whatever that represents to you. Just you and the one, and that inseparability. Focus on that. When all else fails, this will save your butt. Number two, focus on something that you enjoy, so that you're getting into the frequency of alignment, so that you're focusing on something or along the lines of a sight, of a perspective that your higher self is also seeing. When that lines up, you feel great, you feel amazing, you're actually in connection with a higher frequency domain, and you have access to higher frequency thoughts, perspectives, observations, clarity, speed, accuracy, all that, all the good stuff. Third way would be to start defining feeling bad in a really, really good way. Now, who has done that already? Who is excited about feeling bad? A little less hands than my last question, which is understandable, and thank you for your honesty. It doesn't feel good to feel bad, right? It's pretty clear cut. But that means it works. So can you at least be happy about that? If you feel bad, it means the system is working. Can you define that in a positive way even though you don't like it? It's meant for you not to like it. If you were out of alignment and you liked it, something would be wrong and you would kill yourself within 10 seconds from now. But it doesn't work that way. You're fulfilling your theme by means of communication with your higher self, the only means we have as human beings. There is other means, but for most human beings, the only real tangible way to get in greater touch with who they are is to take guidance from their feeling body without putting too much story on it, without saying, oh, this means that. Because again, be very careful when you give meaning to an emotion, you start to feel a certain way about the emotion. And you actually no longer feel the initial emotion, you feel your present response to that emotion. For example, I can feel, let's say I feel anger in a moment. If my belief is, oh, this means I'm bad, this means I'm not an enlightened spiritual teacher, this means I'm not this, I'm not that, this means whatever. If I have a negative perspective of the initial emotion of anger that comes up, if I define it in a way that my higher self disagrees with, I feel bad. I don't feel the anger anymore. I may still have remnants of it, or I may think I feel it, but what I feel more now is the frustration of being angry, with being angry. And then everyone recognizes that? Where they judge themselves for feeling a certain way. It's more prominent of a problem, so to speak, or issue, than the initial emotion actually is. In fact, the initial emotion is nothing but a telephone call from your higher self. It's a good thing. But then we continue to distort it in a way because we don't understand how the system works, but now you do. So if on the other hand I would think that, oh, this anger right now is serving a purpose. Wait a second, I'm feeling this fire rise, and this fire actually signifies that I'm becoming aware of something that's relevant in this moment. Somehow this fire of anger is actually passion for truth. It's actually passion for greater alignment. It's passion to bring about greater truth, clarity, and alignment in myself and in my environment. Therefore, it's passion for my alignment. Suddenly, I see as my higher self sees the emotion of anger. And boom, I start to feel really amazing about feeling angry. Initial emotion canceled out. I feel amazing. That's what I'm left with. So you see, your interpretation of a moment, even of an emotion, is what generates the next emotion. So keep spiraling upwards by keep defining it in a more and more holistically amazing way. And you go like this, boom, 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 boom. And it's what they call acceleration. You start accelerating. You start gaining access to states of consciousness. And that sounds fancy, but it's really just organic. But states of consciousness that have access to so much more than you would ever assume. And you become so much more skillful at being you, at being consciousness, because that's what you are. And it comes with all kinds of benefits, most of all, which is feeling good in alignment and clear on who you are and who you want to be and how you wish to respond to people and to life and to experiences. So you get to root yourself more and more in the frequency of abundance, of bliss, of joy, of expansion through, for example, these 3 methods that I just shared. And there's way more. But in general, you will find that it is a combination of either being highly devotional to the highest, focusing upon something that resonates for you, that is in alignment with your higher self, or changing your interpretation of what occurs to be in alignment with your higher self. Now, if you apply these 3 methods and you play with these on and off in different circumstances, see what works best, not saying, oh, one is better than the other, let me just do this. Just like take it as it comes in each moment and intuitively start to play with either the devotion to the highest, going back to, I accept the fact that this is what I create for myself. I know that this is part of my theme. I know that I can handle it, otherwise it wouldn't occur. I know that this is part of what I'm creating. I and I are one. Forget about everyone else. Forget about everything else. You know that you and you are one, and that there is a true love connection, there's a true appreciation for yourself from your higher self, and vice versa. Build that connection up to a very strong, powerful degree to where neediness starts to fall away in that sense, or not even so much neediness, but just lack in general, fear in general. You start to become really stable and grounded and anchored in, and also sky high at the same time, but really anchored in the truth of your being, in the alignment of what matters. Choose something that resonates and focus on that, or change your perspective of what has already occurred to one that is actually in alignment with abundance, with bliss, with joy, with you did great, not you did bad, with you are loved, not you are unloved, etc. Make sense? Just 3 very simple methods, and you can absolutely elaborate on these, make them your own, add your own methods. These are just 3 simple techniques, or focal points, to make sure that you have the tools you need to stay in alignment with yourself, no matter what, and to keep your frequency high, to keep it amplified in that way. Now, as a general concept, this is a method, I guess, but is not to take your cue from your circumstances. But again, if you understand that circumstances already don't mean shit, then it's very easy to not take your cue from circumstances, because you simply see that they don't mean anything. Now, if you do believe they mean something, then you better make sure that your meaning given to the circumstance is in alignment with abundance, I'm loved, I can do whatever, etc. And by I can do whatever, I simply mean I am all possible. Not I go kill people, just I am all possible. I am in the all possible. Everything is possible. That's what I mean with I can do anything. Just to feel powerful. To feel on top of the world, on top of your creation. That makes sense as well? Good. So don't take your cue from circumstances, again, because circumstances take their cue from you. And what happens when something takes its cue from something that takes its cue from something? You create a pattern. You create a loop. You create a timeless zone. You know, in the old Superman movies, where they were, or even the new one, I think, where the three bad guys were captured in this timeless thing that was just going about the universe. That's kind of what we do to ourselves. We stop accelerating, we stop moving, we stop growing, we stop understanding more of ourselves. Because we keep basing how we feel off of what appears. And when we base what we feel off of what appears, when what appears bases itself off of what we feel, you're just basing what you feel off of what you previously felt. And if you don't like what you previously felt, but you think your only option is to feel according to what you see, which is a reflection of how you previously felt, we call it depression, downward spiraling, etc. Stagnancy, stagnation. Make sense? It's all very logical, isn't it? Good. Enlightenment is. Empowerment is too. It's very logical. You just need to see it. Once you see it, you start applying it, and will there be challenging times? Yes. But will you be able to navigate through that? Yes. Will you succeed? Absolutely. Will you ascend? Will you expand? Will you transcend? Absolutely. Will you become more of yourself? Absolutely. Will you become less human? Abso-fucking-lutely. Do you want that? Yes. Thank you. Really? Okay. What do I mean by that? Not human? Oh, don't say that. That's bypassing. That's bad. That's a recipe for disaster. Aren't we all meant to be more human? To feel more emotions? To think more about our lives? To be more connected to who we are? Is it working out? Are you having fun? You have to become less human in order to even understand what it means to be human. Nobody gets what it means to be human. In fact, when you get it, the term human no longer applies. You're just consciousness, you're a being, you're an individuated expression of consciousness. Human, not human, sheep, non-sheep, alien, non-alien, it's all the same. Different forms of expression. But you know that you're consciousness with a frequency, period. Change your frequency, you feel different, you attract different circumstances, you learn at an accelerated fashion, you know that you are in control of your reality. You feel free, you feel happy, you feel good, you feel grounded. Do you feel human? Absolutely not. You don't. If you feel human, something is a little off. You're taking on something that humans made up. That's what it means to be human. Since there is no such thing as the human being, then if you do feel like a human, it simply means you're believing in something that other human beings also heard from other sheep-like human beings, and then everyone keeps repeating themselves. And what does it sound like? Thank you. Oh, hey, I can sing a little differently. Look, I'm being authentically human. You said meh, but I can say meh. And that's what we find joy in. That's what we think is authenticity. Authenticity comes from absolute certainty, clarity, freedom, joy, passion, excitement. In that state, you don't feel human. You also don't feel non-human per se, unless you bring in the story of your previous self. Then, in relationship to the story of your previous self, you could say and deduce, oh, I feel less human. But what did it even mean to be human in the first place? It doesn't really exist. So, consciousness is consciousness. Humanity does not exist. Human beings don't exist. You're not a human. You're not a human. You've never been, thanks, Jim. You've never been human. You've only ever been consciousness. Can you argue that? Are you conscious of what I'm saying right now, or are you human being of what I'm saying right now? You're conscious of what I'm saying right now. That's the only thing you can prove. Do you feel a certain way? I'm assuming that you do. So you're consciousness with a feeling state. And that's all you ever experience. Even when you seem to experience circumstances all you ever experience is, to whatever extent your point of view of the empty smoke and mirror circumstance, reflection of your consciousness, is either in or out of alignment. The further out of alignment that perspective is from the vibrational truth of consciousness, the worse you'll feel. Do you feel the circumstance? No, you've never felt the circumstance. You've only ever felt how you thought about it and whether or not your higher self disagrees with that or agreed with it. You are consciousness, you are a vibrational expression of this consciousness, and that's about it. You've never been human, you'll never be human, you'll never be beyond human. You've never been human, doesn't exist. I hope that clarifies it. So, be happy. Happiness takes you beyond the realm of thinking that you are human. And it shows you that you are consciousness, it shows you that you are clarity. Again, does that mean you become inhuman? No, obviously not, unless you want to sacrifice your integrity to the fact that everything is one being, and that everyone can have exactly what they desire without having to deprive you of what you desire, and you can have exactly what you desire without having to deprive any other portion of yourself of what they desire. It can all coexist. You take responsibility of your vibrational state of being. And you know, you have faith, you have confidence that that is how you generate your reality. You don't generate your reality by going out into the circumstances and thinking about the circumstances. Or doing something with the circumstances. It doesn't really exist. I know that's hard to grasp, but the higher you go into the direction of being consciousness and being vibrational, you will start to actually experience that this is empty. This too. But most of you know that. Or most of you don't. Which proves that it's empty. Anyway, so everything is empty. Everything is energetic reflections of consciousness, of your vibration, and to what extent that's in alignment with another level of your consciousness. Just because we make the distinction between lower self and higher self doesn't mean you are not that one same consciousness. It's just different levels of vibratory understanding or self-reflection within that same overall consciousness that you are. So all that's ever going on is that you are consciousness, that you choose your vibratory state, and that based on your vibratory state, whatever that looks like, beliefs, thoughts, circumstances, you are in communication with yourself within yourself. With your consciousness, within your consciousness. You can never leave that. So whenever you feel something, it's letting you know how in or out of alignment you are. So that's all that's happening. Consciousness, vibration, and guidance. That's all that's ever happening. So the sooner you understand that, the sooner you can let go of the physical, overly physical focus. There's nothing wrong with the physical focus because it's why you're here to an extent, to bring your non-physical self into a physical focus of some sort. However, when you forget that you're here to bring into physicality non-physicality, but you think that you're meant to bring physicality into non-physicality, which is not how you think about it, but that simply means, that translates as, oh, I believe that what is happening out there should indicate how I should feel, non-physically. The physical determines how I should feel, non-physically. It's the other way around. When you forget that, again, nothing wrong with the physical focus, but it just has to come from the right direction. It has to come from the direction of manifestation, not receptivity. Really? Okay, let me explain that. That means receptivity, or the lack thereof, does not mean that you're not receptive, does not mean you're not sensitive, does not mean you're not intuitive, does not mean you never tune into things, or people, or probabilities, or timelines, or however subtle you want to take this. Doesn't mean you never listen. Doesn't mean that you only ever just project your own nonsense onto things. It simply means that you get out of the mindset of circumstances should determine how I should feel about myself, and what I should act on, and how I should take action next, and what I should think next. When we take our cue from the circumstances, from the physical, we lose our sense of non-physical connection. And that's the worst space to be in. It's what we call being human. We don't want that. We don't want to be human. It sucks to be human. Yep. It sucks. Big ass, hard time, sucky. Okay. Whatever that means. It means to be human. So renounce being human so that you can actually be whatever. I was almost going to say human, but you get the point. So So physicality versus non-physicality. Or physical focus versus non-physical focus. Again, the physical focus is a beautiful aspect of creation. It shouldn't be renounced completely. It should simply be understood to be the tail end of your consciousness. It's the very end, like nothing really changes there. You can't really make any modifications there. And therefore, if you're stuck focusing yourself into that and taking your cue from that, you're never really changing. You never really move that much, that often, that fast. You're never that much in alignment with the truth of creation, with the truth of consciousness, with the truth of divinity. So you need to take a step back, relax. Relax your excessive focus upon the physical circumstances and what they mean. Remember that they don't mean anything. They're empty mirror reflections of your previous suggestions to life, your previous state of being. And now you start inserting your own reality into creation. And now you got it the right way around. Now you understand how creation works. It works from you into physicality, not from physicality into you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. If you can even get this principle and fully start seeing it, and there's so many subtleties and so many degrees to this, that you simply have to practice with it. And even if you say, yes, I get it right now, 2 months from now, you look back and you say, no, I didn't really get it yet at that point, but I get it now. And then 2 months later, you say again, oh no, I had no clue back then, but I get it now, and I get it now. And that's part of the infinite expansion of your soul, of your spirit, of your consciousness, of your individuated understanding of all that is that you'll gain greater and greater and greater and greater absorption with who you are. Greater and greater samadhi, or union, as I called it in the last meeting, with who you truly are. Greater understanding, therefore. Higher state of consciousness, basically. Again, sounds fancy, but it's very organic. It's simply, once you allow yourself to move and know that you are mainly a non-physical creature, focusing portions of itself into physicality, like someone throwing a tennis ball, for example. When someone's throwing a tennis ball, they do not go chase the ball. They do not like fly after the ball. That's what we constantly do. We throw a seed out there. We plant a seed out there, we throw an idea out there, we throw a thought out there, an emotion, a state of being, an understanding, a belief, an action, and then we go chase it. What we do is we lose our non-physical, malleable state of focus and connection and trust and faith and all these beautiful things spirituality talks about, which are all encapsulated by what I'm saying right now. And we become dense, we become physicalized, we feel stuck, we feel limited, we feel like we're lacking things, we feel like we're lacking the means and the resources, etc. If we stay as the guy that throws all the balls, and we simply enjoy the game from that point of view, then we've got it the right way around. Then we understand that it's meant to come from us into physicality, and that physicality is a reflection of us, and the only purpose it has is to show us how we've been doing vibrationally. Is to help us reflect upon our vibration, not upon our physicality. Don't ever reflect upon your physicality. Allow your physicality to help you reflect on you. Major difference, once again. Does that make sense? You use what you see physically, not in terms of, oh, this is solid, this is real, this is reality. I should take my cue from what I see. No, what you see should allow you to reflect upon what you've previously done to yourself vibrationally. What you've previously stated vibrationally. If you learn from the circumstances on a vibrational level, you will start to move faster and faster and faster. Your frequency will be higher and higher and higher. And at some point, this whole idea of being human disappears, and you start to relate as consciousness having a vibration. And you start to actually understand the universe. Because you are the universe. It's your universe. So you have all the rights to start to understand it a little bit better. You know nothing yet. And I don't mean this as an arrogant statement. I know nothing yet either. Like I said, every 2 months, you see yourself back 2 months ago and you say, I didn't have a clue. Same applies to me. So, we don't know shit. We don't know anything. Keep expanding, keep changing, keep evolving, keep understanding more and more and more so that you can let go of all the things that don't work easier and easier and faster, and you can actually start to live in a vibrational reality instead of a physical reality. Now, in a vibrational reality, there is no end to resources, there is no end to what is possible. In a physical reality, you are stuck because that's what it's designed to be, stuck. A frozen snapshot of reflecting your vibration. If you forget this, which is fine, you will suffer. You will feel stuck. You will feel limited. You will feel like you are at the whim of your circumstances when you never, in fact, are. Your circumstances are at the whim of you. So just get it the right way around and you're totally fine. Don't dismiss physicality. Don't run away from it. Don't walk away from it. You simply have to understand that you can totally be there, present to it, face it, but have this understanding shift from, oh, this means something, to, oh, nice, that means that I was doing this vibrationally. Ooh. Now I wish to insert this. Let's go to the non-physical imagination. Wow, that picture really resonates. This perspective of life really excites me. Boom, let me execute this. Let me be this. Let me become this. I feel great. I feel amazing. I take action according to what feels great. And then, maybe a week later, or maybe a minute later, doesn't matter, I will notice something in the circumstances will stand out to me, will call my attention. What does that mean? That I should react to that? No, I should learn from it and respond according to my desire. Does that make sense? Great. So it's a bit of a subtle science. As you hear, it may sound a little bit like, how am I going to do all that? But it's also very simple and intuitive simultaneously, no? It makes sense. Doesn't it make sense? It's kind of logical. And it's not that different from what you've been doing. You just reverse the process. Instead of taking your cue from your circumstances, you start to understand that your circumstances will take their cue from you. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, even if you say, oh, circumstances are king, then circumstances will reflect that. You're still in the creator seat. You can never actually be stuck. Even when you keep recreating the same loop, it's only because you keep recreating the same loop, not because your circumstances are actually solid, dense, linear, and limited. It's because you are thinking and feeling in limited ways. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, good. Are there any questions? Are you happy?
Yes.
Here's the thing, it's not even so much about, are you happy about something? If anything, it's about, do you understand how the universe works? Because when you do, you'll naturally be happy. Because if you understand and see how the universe works, your perspective is in alignment with your true self, and you'll naturally be happy. Because that's the only way you can feel happy, is by understanding how this works. Or at least having a correct view of life. And that does not mean that you have to understand everything or every nuance. It simply means, it can even be, some people experience genuine happiness by renouncing all understanding, right? So they become these devotional creatures, which is fine, it's great. It has real beauty to it. Sometimes it comes from fear and being afraid of being incapable of actually understanding something and going for it and trying it out, and they just want to not feel bad. So, nevertheless, sometimes it can have genuine, freeing, liberating effects by renouncing all knowledge. Saying, I know nothing. Feels good because it's true. You don't. However, that's an understanding that's already in vibrational alignment with greater expansion. That's why you feel good when you think, I know nothing. So you don't actually feel good for any other reason than the simple thought that defines your reality in a way that somehow finds a vibrational match with the truth of creation. Being, I don't understand anything, and I don't need to. And usually that's the liberating aspect of that particular perspective. It's not so much, I don't know anything, because usually there is even a little hint of negativity in there because there's some lack of worthiness to understand, lack of capacity to understand, to grok, etc. But what makes these people feel really good, and I don't mean to categorize them as these people, so excuse my language in that way, but what makes them feel really good is the belief, that means I don't have any responsibility. Or, that means I don't have to do anything. Or, that means I don't have to feel bad because I don't know anything. And so it's that relaxing point of view that's in vibrational truth with creation that makes you then feel good. So the only thing that can make you feel good is an in-alignment perspective. Okay, any questions? That'd be great, yes. And believe in yourself no matter what, if you can do that. If you can maintain your integrity to believing in yourself no matter what, then this is a very beautiful anchoring way to keep yourself in alignment. Because it's true. Because you are infinitely capable, you are infinitely worthy, you are infinitely wise no matter what. You do know best, ultimately. Doesn't mean you shouldn't ever take any wisdom from anyone else or reflections, but it does mean that at the core of your being, you know who you are. And when you believe that you are good, when you believe that you are in alignment, when you believe that you mean well and that you're doing your best and that you are capable of anything, you will feel good throughout all these circumstances. Okay.
I feel good now that, can you hear?
Hold it for a moment. Is it green? About 2 seconds, hold the button.
I feel good now because you remind me who I am, and
Right.
I feel...
Another method, I'm so sorry, 1 second. I'm not sorry, but this is good. Another method, how to keep your frequency high, is to keep yourself remembering. How do you do that? Physical permission slips. Use your circumstances wisely in that sense. Don't take your cue from them, what they mean, but infuse your circumstances with as many reminders as you can, and I promise you, you'll make it much, 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 much easier on you, and you'll progress much, much faster. So watch a video, read a book, not that nonsense spirituality, but something that actually resonates, something that actually makes you feel good. If that is a romantic novel, then go for that. Don't go for the Nisargadatta, unless Nisargadatta makes you feel amazing. So whatever makes you feel amazing, fill your life up with as many reminders to feel amazingly connected to who you are. Watch some of my videos, perhaps, join the academy, go read a book, go for a hike, go put some post-its around your house, stupid as it sounds, but whatever helps you remind yourself, or check in with a friend that you have this type of pact or agreement with, etc. Whatever permission slip works, just fill your life with these reminders. It's extremely helpful.
Yes, and now I feel it's not only a reminder, it's almost like it's so true. But I feel a kind of dissonant with my body, my physicality now.
Sorry?
My body,
Mhm.
it's like the vibratory.
Your physical body?
Yeah, I notice that when I enter your field, I'm enchanted by your high frequency. But at the same time, I see the dissonance with my physical body that still cannot catch on this vibration yet. So it's like I see the distance.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
Who am I and where am I at now? And something I always don't know how to put in your system about work.
Work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not in my system, that's why you can't figure out why it's in there.
yes, it's not in your system. It's in my system and from my experience in my life. Maybe it's a belief. It's like when I want to raise my vibration, I need to put fire and to cook, continue to cook until it really become vapor into steam or something.
Sure.
Then I can be there, heaven. So I wonder, and for me it's so true in my experience, but so I wonder how, if there is something called work in your system, or you say there's no, I like to hear more about
There
it.
is work in terms of just very practical, like I'm working right now to bring this to my mouth. But are you doing something that you enjoy doing?
For example, if I want to keep my physical body in a fine, more refined vibratory state,
Uh-huh.
I need to work.
You mean physical workout, or you mean working to get money, to sustain your body?
Working out. I
Yes,
mean,
like physical
working on
exercise.
myself to be in alignment with my subtle body, my physical body, or
So, but isn't that enjoyable to you?
it's enjoyable, but it requires work. It's not only from
Well,
what I
then it
think.
must not be very enjoyable to you. You're talking about physical exercise, right?
Not
Just to be
only.
clear? Okay.
Yeah.
What else? Well, it doesn't even matter. Just as an example, like I don't ever feel that I'm working out when I'm climbing, because I love to climb. I love
Yeah.
to climb, so I don't feel like, oh, that's work, because I want to get stronger, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. It's just because I love to climb. So I get stronger, I get fitter, I get more aware of my body, I become more aligned, I become more of a crystallized expression of who I feel I am on a non-physical self, but it's all because I'm doing what I love to do. So it's got to be exciting to you. So what are you still doing today that does not excite you? And can you find a respectful workaround to that? Or at least start moving into a new paradigm, now that you have greater clarity as to what you enjoy. Work is no longer defined as work when there's no resistance involved, when there is no negativity, when there's no, oh, I have to do this because, but I don't want to. If you're only doing what you love to do, which is ideally the state that we're all in all the time, and it's challenging at times, but still it's the state that ideally we strive for to be in all the time, to do what we want to do, more and more and more and more, until it starts to take over our circumstances and infuse it with things we actually love to do. Then the term work starts to cease from your vocabulary. Then it's simply action or flow or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. And when I hear you say this, I think probably I can let go a little bit about what I cling to, what means work for me. And
Sure.
I believe I should work.
Yes.
And more trust to do more what I really love to do,
Yes,
or what's
yes.
calling now.
Absolutely. Too simple?
I don't know, there is some part of me not really,
Believing?
not totally convinced
Sure. Of what?
about resistance. I do feel there is some challenge in when I'm facing resistance, and I like to really face that resistance, and I feel it's so relevant. And I like to hear how the way you comment about resistance.
Resistance?
Is there, yeah.
That's a broad term. Let's see. Well, in essence, it's putting up a wall to who you truly are, right? So whenever you're either doing something or thinking something or feeling something, can you guys still hear me? Okay. Or believing something that is non-resonant with the truth of your being and how it wishes to express itself from non-physical into physicality, when you forget that it's from non-physical to physical, and you start to work with the physical as if you need to make changes on the physical because that's how you move stuff around, but it goes real slow and it feels like work because it's not true. So anything that feels like work, anything that causes resistance, is quite literally you resisting your true self wanting to come through in a certain way.
I notice when I have resistance, the resistance always comes from my lower self.
Yes. Yes. Well, from your conscious self, but yes. Your higher self is not resisting itself. That's true. So you are putting up a wall towards your higher self. Higher self inspires you, but you say, no, this is not how creation works. I know better. Circumstances come first, and then I'll feel a certain way. That's resistance, basically. So what inspires you? What excites you? That's your way out of resistance, is to start implementing more and more of the things that you desire, of the passion that you are.
So the more energy I put on resistance, the more I get resistance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I don't need to work out of my resistance.
You just have to find what excites you
Mm-hmm.
and start following that more and more and more. And I'm not saying there cannot be a respectful I'm not saying there cannot be a respectful, what's the word? Transition, thank you. Between what you're doing right now and what you actually want to be doing. In other words, you can take 3 months to finish up at your work, leave the projects in a proper way for the other people at the office, give your 30-day notice or whatever, start moving to a location you actually want to move to, start setting up the website you need to set up. There can be that, because we've so consistently infused ourselves with has seemingly become so physical. I'm not saying it cannot change overnight and that magically, without sacrificing integrity, that you can quit your job and instantaneously be doing what you want to be doing. It is possible. Nevertheless, It depends a little bit on your belief systems. How malleable is your belief system? So for most people, I would simply suggest take that respectful transition period of starting to simply follow your joy more and more and more, step by step, until that new system has replaced the old system. How do you do that? You don't do that by focusing more on the resistance and working on the physical. You do that by focusing more on the non-physical, more on the excitement. So what excites you right now that you have not yet started to implement?
May I make with a guy?
Cool, yeah.
Yeah. And it's only one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so easy that I go with this excitement.
Mm-hmm. And what is the resistance to that dream?
Resistance. Do I have resistance ever?
Yeah, what would you say is the resistance to falling in love with a guy? How are you resisting?
It's like that.
How does it scare you? How does it intimidate you? How do you put up lack against that which you wish more of? Because basically, resistance in this way can also be defined as, oh, I want that, but I don't want it. Oh, I want that, but I don't want it because of this and this. I don't want it because when it happens, I'll be liking this, I'll be liking time for myself, I'll be liking the space I want. So we're saying two things. We're connecting to a true image of our true passion, which is to fall in love, whether that's actually with a guy or with an animal or with a job, doesn't really matter, but there's that your image representation of your truest desire in that moment is to fall in love with a guy. So you say, yes, it feels great, right?
Yeah.
In essence, it feels good. But at the same time, and this is what I call having mixed frequencies, we are saying vibrationally to our circumstances, which can only ever reflect our state of being, I don't want it. I want it, but I don't want it. I want it, but I don't want it. And as long as there is an I don't want it, creation will have to honor that request, because free will is honored all the way down to your personal brain consciousness self. So if you won't let in the goodness that is awaiting you and that's already completely there in your field of energy attraction, then you will not let that be made manifest because you are holding it off. You are resisting your true self. Does that make sense?
Yes, and this
Okay.
I
so
think
what's the resistance?
this is the confusion I have. The resistance is that I'm afraid of that I lose the connection with my higher self.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. So
and
your
this-
higher self is being so connected as you are. Higher self is letting you know you want to fall in love with a dude. So you say, thank you, higher self. I'm not going to do what you say because I'll lose connection with you.
Okay, now I see my belief system underneath. Yeah, I can change it.
So I'm going to disconnect from you, what you're telling me to do, so that I won't be disconnected from you. That's what you see people saying to themselves vibrationally all the time. I don't want to be disconnected, so I'm going to disconnect myself. Whenever you're in fear, whenever you're projecting lack, what you're doing is you're literally saying, I'm afraid to lose myself, so let's not be myself.
Yeah. Now I see the fear, and I feel more open to welcoming everything.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You are
That's
beautiful.
great. I felt a wave of release right there. I don't even have to go into it more. That's good.
Thank you.
Yes.
I wish to fall in love with you.
Oh, nice. Ooh, I'm feeling good on a Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clear now.
Good. Oops. Any other questioners? Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how this will come out, but we'll see where it goes.
We never know for sure.
I've heard a few of your talks, and you teach a non-duality, yet in everything you speak, there comes duality. There's no way around it, really, in my experience. So like to talk about, okay, opening up to higher consciousness, and so you're accelerating, going to a higher frequency. We live in an infinite universe, so we're looking at infinite advancement, infinite higher consciousness. And so, and at the same time, if we're letting go of subjectivity, there really is no difference between our lowest frequency and our highest frequency other than in our subjective experience. Part of, some of the words you bring in is letting go of concepts of lack or not having whatever, and chasing, or not chasing after, but accepting abundance in an infinite universe.
Yes.
Great. But at the same time, like for me, talking about being non-human or human is immaterial, because that's just words, right? Or the word work. You can give it a negative connotation or you can give it a positive connotation. In my work that I do to earn a living, sometimes I'm, totally psyched and infused with it. My higher self is totally, working with that.
Great.
Sometimes I'm on my lowest frequency with that.
Great. Still means your higher self is with you. Otherwise, you couldn't feel bad.
Well, and and like you say, I really believe that if I recognize that I'm feeling bad doing my work, and accepting that as still being part of my higher self, it doesn't mean that I'm not in the right job, or like you're saying, okay. And I see it so often where people saying, okay, I'm not doing what I want to do. I want to be doing this over here, so I'm going to do this transition into a new job. Well, I've done that transition several times. To where that new job isn't any different than the old job, really.
Sure.
It's my perception of it.
Yes.
So, and I feel like it's kind of a misnomer, or it's a fallacy then to be thinking even in terms of this or that, kind of thing.
This and that.
This and that. I am a human being, and I'm not a human being. So I accept my humanity. I'm here to experience that humanity,
Yes.
and also experience my higher consciousness. I'm not trying to be non-human, like you're saying. We're not supposed to be human. I am supposed to be human. I fully accept the fact that I should be human. I'm here to experience what it means to be human, and also experience my higher consciousness. And so, to me, I don't know, I get a lot of contradiction then in what you speak
good.
then,
Good.
because
I'm
it's,
happy to hear that.
so I guess I don't really have any question then, other than, I start to feel bad then when I hear you speak some things that don't align with my truer self, because it's, especially when I hearing a lot of teachings of trying to, I feel like it's selling something to people then, if you're going to leave lack behind and accept this abundance, when lack and abundance will always live together simultaneously.
They don't. Lack does not exist.
Life does not exist?
Lack.
Oh, lack does not exist.
Yeah.
Well, then neither does abundance.
Abundance is life.
And
It's another word for life itself. So when we feel bad, it's because we define, oh, there's no life here. Or there's a lack of life here. And since that cannot be computed with on a level of higher consciousness, we are made to feel bad. Because it's a perspective that's not existent. It's not true. That's why we feel bad. It's not that lack exists and abundance exists. It's simply that lack has never existed and abundance is all that there is.
well, how can you have abundance without, you're talking about a duality right there.
Well, you're talking about a level of words, but do you take it to the point that I'm guiding you to? Abundance is a word. I just explained it means life. So when your perspective is life-affirming, life-giving, like, yes, I exist, yes, there is existence, yes, there's life, yes, there's infinite possibilities. If you affirm life over and over and over again, you'll feel better and better and better because your perspective lines up with the way creation sees itself. If you say, no, there is a lack of life here, for example, I can die one day, that's a perspective that feels bad because it's not true. It means you're defining an absence of life at some point. And higher self goes, hey, wait a second, there's a vibrational misalignment. You're saying something exists that does not exist. You're saying that there can be a lack of life when there can only be life. So there's a vibrational non-computing that makes us feel bad. That's how we are guided back into seeing as life sees itself. So to be in a state of abundance is to see life as life sees itself, period. It's to have your vision cleansed, to minimize the distortion between your vibrational perspective or your personal vibration and your true vibration or your true, the way life sees itself or life itself. So abundance is just a counter word to counter for the lack that does not exist that we generated as an illusion. But it could, you could replace it with life.
But we create that lack as a reality equally as much as we
create the illusion of it. But it still doesn't exist.
But we can also create an illusion of abundance as well.
Well, it depends. Again, you're stuck on the level of words. Abundance means life itself.
Okay, but
so
then...
can you create life itself? Well, in a sense, yes, but can you escape life itself? Can you create non-life itself? See how lack is impossible? And what I refer to with the word abundance, which is life itself, can never be escaped. Does that make more sense?
It does. Of course, it all just comes down to definition. But then, I mean, then you're also saying that we really don't exist, that there's, everything, nothing has any meaning, right? That everything is neutral.
I didn't say we don't exist.
Okay.
I said there is no inherent meaning in circumstance.
Okay, no inherent meaning in circumstance. Yeah. Then, okay, you're saying everything is life.
Mm-hmm.
Then,
isn't it?
Well, then it depends on how you define life. Then, because then is there no death? Is there is there no concept of non-existence?
There is not.
There
is the concept of it, but that is life having the concept of non-existence. You can generate the experience of pretty much anything, including that which does not exist. But that will only consist of existence. Existence can feel that it does not exist. Abundance can project that lack of abundance is there, but it will be abundance that makes up the lack. It will be consciousness that makes up the non-life experience.
I guess I see the only, problem I have with it is when people take that word abundance and it gets transferred into material abundance.
Why do you care what people do?
Because I see how it affects them, and I care about other people as much as I care about myself. Just like, I accept very much how you're saying how if I act out of my higher consciousness, then I create my circumstance. My circumstance does not create me, but I also accept the fact that as I raise my consciousness, my circumstance mirrors my frequency and rises with me, right? Yes. So if I see someone chasing a certain concept of abundance.
Let's say a car.
Let's say car, fancy car, whatever. And it's in and of itself, it's not bad or evil or anything, whatever. That maybe it brings them some joy. But from my experience, I understand that that's not really true abundance. And that, does that really raise their frequency higher? I'm not so sure.
Okay. Well, but that's up to them, no? It's up to how they define that moment. No? I think so.
Solid, yeah. Well, we each create our own reality, for sure.
Oh, we definitely do. Thank you for sharing. Any other questioners?
Keeping your vibration high.
Yes. Thank you for re-summarizing the
Actually, I couldn't believe when you had that topic come out, because not last talk, the one before, you were speaking and you just easily just put into a phrase, I spend more time non-physically. I don't get lost in the physicality, otherwise I lose my connection. You said something to that. I'm not quoting you now because I don't have such good memory in this moment. And I said, I'd love to hear Bentinho speak more about there and not get lost here.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes, I can. Being lost in the physical focus, again, which is different than to see that the physical focus is simply a reflection, the end-tail expression of who you are non-physically. If you can see the physical focus in that light, you are anchored in your non-physical focus. Does that make sense? If you can see, it's all how you see things. It's all from where you view things. It's not what you see. What you see doesn't really matter. It's where you view things from. What vibrational realm do you see things from? If you look at the physical circumstances and you see it from the light of understanding, vibrationally knowing and seeing and recognizing that it's only the entailed reflection of what you previously did to yourself vibrationally, you are in alignment with the non-physical focus. That's why I say you don't have to dismiss the physical focus, you just need to see it from the light of the non-physical self and know that that's what you're looking from. If that's what you do, you can look and stare into the physical focus, become a biologist by all means. Do whatever you want to do. Explore the physical laws that are only ever conditional upon the reality that they apply to. But still, if you're so fascinated with physicality, you can absolutely do that. Just as long as it gives you joy, obviously, as long as it connects you to more of who you are and expresses more of who you are. But as long as you see it from the light of the non-physical, then you are anchored non-physically and you're not lost in the physical focus. So it's not about seeing physicality or recognizing physicality or even responding to physicality, as long as you vibrationally know that you are coming from a non-physical being and that you're looking at the very last segment of your creation. So, to not get lost, what does it feel like to be lost in the physical? Who knows? Lost, with the emphasis on lost. Again, it's not about the physical focus, it's about being lost in the physical focus. Forgetting that you are a vibrational creature, that you are a consciousness that's having a frequency experience of itself, that's reflecting upon itself, utilizing the mirror that we call physical reality or circumstances. It feels like shit. It feels like you're stuck. It feels like you lack movement, like you lack abundance, like you lack the means to do what you desire to do, what wants to come through you. You feel isolated, you feel separate from what you see. Whenever you look at the physical focus from the assumed physical focus point of view, you feel like you are physicality. You feel like you are physical, like you feel like you are the body in a separate world. You feel like you are isolated from other people. You feel like you are at harm based on other people.
Not good enough.
Not good enough, definitely. When you're in the non... I don't hear myself. You guys hear me still? It's still clear? Okay.
It's good if you move it a little closer to your
Okay.
mouth. When you do that, it gets better. You bend it up to the inner.
How's this? Good? Good, good. Keep talking. How's this? How's this? Keep talking? Just keep talking. Okay, let's keep talking. So, when you're looking at the physical focus, you can only ever look at the physical focus from the non-physical focus, but you can believe that you're looking at the physical focus from the physical focus. When you do that, you're out of alignment, you're out of vibrational alignment with where you position yourself, who you know yourself to be, and you will feel lacking, limited, etc. We all know that state, right? So just recognize it. Are you feeling slightly limited? Are you feeling slightly contracted? Are you feeling slightly lacking? Are you feeling slightly stuck in your reality? If so, you're looking at your physical focus from an assumed physical point of view being, when in reality you are consciousness, hearing my voice right now. Can you find physicality to the consciousness that hears my voice right now?
No.
Can you put it on this table? No. Can I eat it? Can I take a bite of it and give the rest to you? Can't do that. It's the spacious container of all the contents of life. That's what you are. You are the spacious free agent that contains all of creation. You give life in that sense to all that appears inside of you. This is your canvas. This is your illusion. This is your dream. So always remember that you are non-physical consciousness. And it's very obvious to see because you can't find consciousness, and yet all that you know is that you are conscious. So it's very deducible that you are non-physical. No? You see the physical, but how do you do that? From where do you see the physical? From a space of consciousness, from a space of awareness. Can you find awareness? Well, you can find it as an experience of itself, but you can't find it as a thing in the physicality. So it must mean that you are the spacious container which includes and encompasses all the physical projections of creation that seem physical, which really even physicality is not physical. But just to make that distinction, let's call it physical. Again, this is empty. It's nothing but consciousness's quote-unquote energy, and even to call it energy would be false, because it's not even that. It's really nothing. But it's quite miraculous. It's consciousness itself. This is consciousness. It's one of the hardest things to grasp, but this is consciousness. It's not physicality, it's not molecules, it's not atoms, it's not energy, it's consciousness. There is no second thing in creation. But we make that distinction. We say there's consciousness, and then there's its energy, its presence energy. I make that distinction because it's super relevant, it's super enjoyable, and it allows you to learn more efficiently in some ways. But ultimately, when we talk about creation, all there is consciousness. This is consciousness. There is no energy. In a sense there is, but that is consciousness. So, you are non-physical by nature. When you feel even slightly bad, you're in a sense positioning yourself on a level of consciousness where you don't belong, where your true identity is not supposed to be associated with. Not supposed is a strong word, because you're supposed to learn, you're supposed to bump into conflict, you're supposed to have challenges, you're supposed to feel limited so that you can have this journey. So it is of service to the overall consciousness, learning more about its expression of infinity, etc. It all gets very complicated, but it's very simple at the same time. So you simply want to use your navigational tool, which is how you feel, as to how well you place your assumed identity. If you place your assumed identity in a really real state of being, one that comes very close to the actual truth of your nature, you will feel good, you will feel expanded, you will feel inseparable, you will feel free, you'll feel peaceful, you'll feel all capable. If you move further and further down into the physical illusion of consciousness and position your assumed identity right there in the midst of the tail end expression of who you actually are, then things start to feel contracted. Then things start to feel really bad. I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se or a bad sign. Again, it's a good sign because it means the system is working. You're being guided back into more and more non-physicality so that you can review and recreate the physical focus from a non-physical understanding of who you are. Any questions?
In fact, I don't perceive now like life as in creating the time. I kind of have the sense of a platform. Okay. My circumstances give me an indication more or less what platform I'm on. Nice. And what platform I'd like to be. Yes. So I kind of have this vision that I'm kind of like hopping. Like I love the analogy of the parallel universes. I really resonate with that. So basically, not taking life as I was taught it to be too seriously. I started to make fun of myself. I'm talking of the idea of who I used to be more than 3 years ago. Since I've discovered your teachings, you reminded me I don't need to define things that I can define it in another way. What if I define it another way? What would it look like? So that's what I started doing, and that's why I've literally put all my eggs in the basket and said, what if Bentinho is right? And see what happens. In fact, my whole life has completely changed. It's completely... Oh my God. Okay, so he's right.
Finally, someone gets it.
So yes, Marie and I have basically put all our eggs in, and it works perfectly. Is by define the circumstance, define what you want the way you like it. That gives you like little giggles and makes you, you know, that let's define the things that we want in a way that, you know, excites us. What do we really prefer? Why I want you to speak about that is because not too long ago, I felt in South Africa, I felt a circumstance made me feel ridicule. And at the moment it hurt because I was believing something that's not true. Okay, and then I suffered for a few hours. I suffered for a few hours and then I remembered you. You know, I often do what would Bentinho be thinking in this moment. And I said, well, what would I prefer to feel in that moment? And all of a sudden, it's like I prefer to feel brilliant.
Great.
And then proceeded for the next hour and a half of feeling that. Oh, wow. So I'm wondering, is that the process of what you... I kind of want to get inside of you to see how you feel, because this is where I am right now. It's not that I'm getting bored, it's that's why we came to Colorado. I'd like to excite myself, to a point that where can my mind go? What platform can I get on that would really make this really fun? To the extent, it's not that I have a boring life, I have a wonderful life, but I'd like to go beyond that comfortness that I know that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. More acceleration begets more acceleration.
So that's why when you said, how do you keep that level of vibration higher? I'm imagining that the more airtime we give to the higher, it's going to be a fun ride, you know.
Yes,
now that's
yes,
what
yes.
I want you to talk about.
Good. So here's the only disclaimer to that, and take this in whatever way you want, which is that the nature of our choice to be semi-physically focused as a theme that is relevant for us has the downside, which is really the upside, because true acceleration is not even so much how it looks like you're accelerating, but more what you take away from your experience while you're here. That is true acceleration. From a soul level, from a personal level, it might look from, okay, I went from this shitty cottage to this $1 million mansion, and I went from working a 9-to-5 job to doing absolutely what I love and helping set people free, etc., right? That could be within the storyline of this life. That can be your measurement for acceleration. That could be one measurement for acceleration, for having made changes, for having understood yourself, the principles of the universe, starting to master your frequency regardless of circumstances, therefore attracting quote-unquote better circumstances, or which simply means circumstances more reflective of your true desires. That's one measurement of acceleration. Now, and it's great, it's amazing, and this is what continuously builds throughout our life. However, from a more expanded soul point of view, true expansion means what you take away from this life. Because when you die, you leave your house behind. All that stuff no longer, it's not that it doesn't matter, because it was a permission slip for your true expansion. So it's simply a way to communicate to your circumstances, which is more of yourself, a reflection of yourself, what is happening with you, so that you can learn from it and take away from it. So true expansion on a soul level, if you die, when you'll be truly happy, is if you've used this life to the best of your ability, as consciously as you can, and tried this process out. Also accepting the times where within this human time frame of measurement of acceleration, you have embraced the concept of the peaks and the valleys. Because if you drive yourself too crazy with just this barometer of acceleration being how you manifest your reality, or how you feel all the time, and that if you feel bad for like longer than a day, that means you've digressed completely. If you start being too attached to how things appear within this one life, and then base your sense of acceleration off of that, then you're doing the same thing you were previously doing off of your circumstances. Because your physical life here is still a circumstance. So even how you manifest your reality and how you feel is ultimately a circumstance to your soul. Does that make sense? So how you utilize that and what you take away from it is what you actually take with you into the expansion of your soul consciousness, which is why you're here to begin with. So don't get too hung up on what works and what does not work, or if it doesn't work all the time. I don't mean the first thing. Like, definitely focus on what works and let go of what does not work. Absolutely, absolutely. But don't oversaturate yourself with focusing on looking at whether or not things are actually working out. Because if you do that, you're again stuck too much in the physical identification of yourself as a separate individual. Does that make sense?
No, definitely. From the perspective now that I hold, is like it's always working out.
Yes.
If it's just like, am I seeing it or not? I mean, it's the first time that I can honestly say, through the lifetime that I've lived now at 42, I've been actually hearing my own thoughts, and then laughing at them or not, or deciding what to think. It's just an amazing experience. So but I heard what you just said. And I liked it. I'm just going to let it settle there a second. Is there one thing I just want to put to bed? I'm following your academy. It's brilliant, by the way. You have this beautiful analogy about the main pole, a secondary pole, and an elastic. And the further us being here in this physicality, three-dimensional physicality, as we move away, we feel the emotion get worse, or...
Yes.
Okay. So the closer I get to the main pole, the better I feel.
Yes, the less tension, the less resistance,
Resistant,
etc.
exactly. Now, just to put this to bed, if I don't pick up how bad I'm feeling in the moment, I get lost in this reality. It gets worse, I've noticed. The feeling gets a lot worse. If I continue...
Until you notice it.
If I continue to ignore it or get lost more into this physicality, I start to feel some physical discomfort.
Yes.
Does it have anything to do with the emotion, or is my physical discomfort... Okay.
Yes.
So... I got very good at just feeling the negative emotion, but I do remember at times I used to get so far away of getting such migraines at some time I just needed to put myself to bed.
Sure.
Of self-condemnation. Damn it, I've done something wrong again. So basically, the moment I let go of that definition, the headache would go.
Yes.
Okay. So discomfort in the physical is an indication I've been ignoring an emotion.
Yes, I would say 90% of the time it is.
90%. So it's not only that.
No, in a sense, yes. In a sense, no. So, yes, it's always that because it's always a reflection of what's going on vibrationally. But it's not always the case in the same context where it's like, oh, I've had too many negative thoughts, therefore this particular pain is occurring.
Okay.
Sometimes the particular pain is occurring because it's relevant for you to learn from that particular experience in a certain way that may not be directly related to the negative thoughts that you've had, although from another point of view, you could say that you would not have to learn that lesson at all if you did not have had those negative lessons, or those negative ideas before. But it's too much of a generalization to say that because in the applicable, relevant situation, sometimes you're feeling an experience of physical pain because it's showing you a certain direction. It does not have to be directly tied to a previous limited state of being. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, because I heard Eckhart Tolle say he suffers from constant ringing in the ear. I was thinking the guy is definitely hooked up, you know what I mean? So how come he's having this constant... And then I actually heard Byron Katie saying she's going blind. So I'm wondering what the body, you know what I mean? It's
well,
just
we never stop learning. We never stop expanding. And so we need permission slips for that.
Okay.
The ringing of the ears can have many causes. It doesn't have to be suffering, but if he defines it as suffering, then he does have something to learn from that. Therefore, that's why it's there, etc. We all have something to learn. Doesn't matter how enlightened we are. If we're here, we can expand even more. And consciousness does not waste time. If we don't have anything that we can extract from this experience anymore, we'll simply disappear. So even if the learning is almost completely based on being of service, and that you extract your learning from that, that still is catalyst. That still is conflict in a sense. That still is contrast. Similar to having a physical pain offers contrast in experience, being of service, even if it's from a very pure state of not really needing anything much more psychologically for yourself, that is contrast too. And from a more impartial point of view, the contrast that you gain through being of service to other beings is the same catalytic mechanism for learning and experiencing as a physical pain. Does that make sense? So as long as we're here in whatever way that manifests, we have something to extract. Because as soon as you're done with one lesson, consciousness goes, oh, well, you're still alive. This body still agrees with the rules of the society. There's still something to squeeze out of this life, so let me insert another challenge. Let me insert another challenge. Let me insert another challenge. This can look like a physical sensation. This can look like a migraine. This can look like being of service or anything else.
And I get to choose how to define it.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're Eckhart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's my perspective anyway. You are all loved beyond measure. And it would like you to know that. You don't have to, but See what I see. And if you can't, then trust what I see. So that you can come to see it yourself.